Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you, thank you.
It is Wednesday, and you know what that means is Let's Rap About It Wednesdays. I am your host, Coach Lakeisha McGaney-Osei of Joy is Just Over Yonder, and we are back for another week of wellness combos. You know how we do. We always have a special guest on board with us to sit down basically in our living rooms and talk wellness talk. Well, tonight is no different. Tonight we have a very special guest, my co-author from the I Am Victor anthology with Dr. Cheryl Woods. One of my favorite people that I met along the way on this journey to amazing. She graced us with her presence during our Wrapped in Wellness Meet Us at the Well back in January. And she was a pure delight, as you will find here. She has a wonderful spirit and a testimony that allows her to operate in her gift in the mental health field. And tonight, we welcome you all to the living room for this wellness conversation on having healthy strategies for the upcoming holiday season. And I want to introduce to you no other than Dr. Emma Norfleet, and she is the founder of Ask Emma. Yes, ask her what you want. So we do want you to ask questions tonight. If there's anything that comes up that you want her to delve more into, but I thought this was a timely conversation to have as we go deep into the holiday season, particularly since, of course, we're still in a pandemic, but we have a lot of individuals who are grieving losses, whether it be family or friends, jobs, just their way of life. There is a lot of grief that could be going into this season, and people just learning to navigate through it without having that loved one or not feeling as financially stable as they had in the past. And so we wanted to bring on an expert in the field of mental health to kind of talk us through and help us with some strategies that we can use, that we can share, that we can hopefully you all can see as a resource to getting through the holiday season and beyond. So welcome, Dr. Emma.
And thank you, Coach Keisha. I appreciate that warm invite and welcome. So, what's happening now with the holidays, you all? Lots of people are missing loved ones. I'm going to talk to you all about some strategies and things that you'll need to do to get yourself through these holidays, because most of the time we have fond memories associated with holidays. And now if holidays are upon you with this pandemic, as Coach Keisha has said, you also have to deal with the losses. And that fun time is not so fun anymore. And so my backdrop is I am a trauma expert, and I'm also known as Ask Miss Emma. And when you're talking about trauma, you all, trauma is something that if you haven't dealt with it, it's like a mask. It just stays upon you. So now imagine the compoundness of this with the holidays coming. You already are having anxiety, mood changes, mood shifts. We're talking about people with depression. So it's not uncommon, even for the winter months to approach, that a person with depression starts to feel even more depressed, because guess what? We're not getting as much sun. It gets darker sooner. So that's called the seasonal. And I think when you have seasonal on top of pandemic, on top of the woes that come along with planning for holidays, it can be very overwhelming, quite overwhelming. I definitely want you all, if you have specific questions, because I'm going to go from a broad general perspective about just strategies to do to help you get through it. But if you have very specific questions about trauma, depression, anxiety, you can ask Miss Emma. So I want to talk about my backdrop as a trauma expert. I am a survivor of trauma. As a little girl, I had an alcoholic father. And this alcoholic father, on one particular night, he entered the home. We had grown accustomed to chaos and mayhem. But on this particular night, it was much more than chaos and mayhem because he took it to another level. This was an opportunity for him to terrorize the family even more, so to speak. So imagine a 5-year-old girl waking up in just the chaos and mayhem that she's used to, but this time there's an added component to it. This time the father is trying to sexually abuse one of the older sisters. But there is this brother, this fierce brother, who remains alive to this day and will forever reign as my personal hero, who interrupts this act. And so when he interrupts this act, the trauma is taken to another level. At this point, now I'm looking at a father who's trying to do the unconscionable, despicable act of trying to sexually abuse my older sister. But this fierce brother didn't back down that night. And he challenged this alcoholic. Because when you talk about alcohol, which is another form of mental health, you all, you're talking about people that are operating outside of their conscious state of mind. So despite the horrendous things that they do, in a sense, they have an altered state of mind. And so whenever you have an altered state of mind, if you get into the legal system, guess what? There's some leniency given to that. But back to the story on this night, this inebriated, drunken father, he does this despicable act, but this brother comes in and he handles things. This is a teenage brother, because I'm 5. And he doesn't back down. But this takes it to another level because now you've interrupted something the alcoholic wanted to happen. And so then there's another threat. Now the threat has thrust upon the teenage brother. You stay right here. I'm going to kill you, you son of a. So at that point, the 5-year-old in her trauma is traumatized even further. And so now I'm afraid that my brother's going to die. Now, the inebriation worked in our favor this time because he was inebriated, so he couldn't really, move about like he thought he could. But he was going towards where we knew he kept the guns. At this time, this brother huddles everybody up, and to the woods across the street we go in safety. So we thought. As we enter the woods, he literally tries to follow up on his threat to kill my brother. But what he's unconscious of in his inebriated state, my brother had his other 6 siblings with him. So imagine 6 siblings running through a woods. And as we're running through the woods, we hear bullets entering. I know for sure will never, as I'm speaking of it now, I remember the sound of a bullet whispering past my ear. It is the sound unlike any other sound I've ever heard, and probably won't unless somebody shoots at me again. Now, of course, the drunken person is thinking, I'm just trying to shoot the teenager. But there's 7 of us in the woods. So imagine that kind of situation. This brother stoops down because I'm panicked. I'm standing still. I'm not trying to run. I'm just paralyzed in fear. And this fierce brother leans down and he says, I got you, baby girl. It's going to be okay. And at that moment, the grasp of his hands, it was very comforting. And I was dragged 2.5 miles to safety to my aunt's home. And that is the person before you today, someone that has survived trauma. Now, tying it back into what we're talking about tonight, you all, with the mental health, I want to start giving you some of those tips that you can do to get yourself through it. Number 1, you want to make sure that you plan for the present. Well, what do you mean, Miss Emma, when you say plan for the present? Plan for the present. If you have not gone through your grief work as it relates to a loved one that's missing, and it has been beyond 6 months to a year, well, you've now entered into pathology, and it's time to deal with that. Because remember, trauma is like a mask. And oftentimes I liken that to bereavement, because a lot of people do not deal with their bereavement. And when you don't deal with your bereavement, same thing, Darth Vader. There's this mask about you. And guess what? The mask comes off during Christmas holidays, because remember, we have those fond memories of that particular person. Further trauma in my life, now that I'm able to deal with it more, I've lost my mother in 2019, my baby sister in 2020, and 2 older sisters in 2021.
Wow.
So, yes, the difference in dealing with it now, you all, is that back as the little girl, she didn't have any coping skills. She didn't know what to do with that kind of stuff, because it was a threat of imminent risk nature. In this case, I can totally understand how people can get to Christmas time and just become unraveled, because if you haven't practiced, good coping skills, you won't be able to get through this holiday without it just being gloom doom. So plan for the present. Plan for the present and the future going forward. And remember, the first tip is, if you have been dealing with this more than 6 months to a year, it's time to reach out and seek out a mental health professional. You can check with your church. You can you can call my agency, 240-423-410, 240-429-5390. And my person that's there, she doesn't get people off the phone until she leaves you with referrals. Now, I'm licensed in Maryland, Virginia, and DC. So I have other clinicians if you want to come to my agency. But it is time. If it's been 6 months to a year and you are still grieving like it happened yesterday, and with the holidays coming upon you, you're feeling that whole pull of not really wanting to be engaged. You don't want to isolate yourself.
Right.
You're confused. Poor decision making at this time. That leads to the next skill and intervention I'd like for you all to do to keep yourself safe during this holiday. Don't do any impulsive spending. It's not going to make you feel better. The loss that you have still exists. So when you go out and spend boatloads of money that you really haven't planned to spend, then you're putting yourself in a financial burden, possibly. And you still have the loss, and you still have to deal with the financial, dire straits that you're going to put yourself in. So again, the first one is plan for the present and the future. And don't do impulsive buying during this holiday. Sit down. Even now, Thanksgiving is not here. Sit down, come up with a budget plan. Because the last thing you want to do is come out of this and still feeling depressed, and now you're broke. We broke.
That's very important.
Coach Keisha, we broke and we still heart hurting.
Right.
Mind dysregulated. It hasn't changed. So, and then the third thing, what you want to do with this grief is, your people, find something that you really, really enjoy. If family members get together and they start to just, kind of like go at each other, don't let the holiday fun be ruined by you all using that as I call it a distractor of what you're going through. Because sometimes we'll create a fire over here so I don't have to deal with this. Because think about it, when you get yourself all riled up and all of that, well, for the moment, you ain't hurting anymore. But the loss is what? Still present. It's still there, because that loved one is not coming back. And sometimes you all, when we talk about losses, we may not necessarily be talking about death. We could be talking about losses related to a divorce. We could be talking about a loss related to a miscarriage. So it's not just that this is related to death. I don't want you all to think that, because losses are relative to the individual. My loss is related to the losses of loved ones since 2019. None of them are here now. So my heart goes out to people who don't have the coping skills that they need to deal with that, because a part of life is death. A part of life is death. But when we don't know how to deal with the death, and it extends beyond that year mark, it's time for us to reach out and ask for some help. Ask Miss Emma.
Ask Miss Emma.
Ask Miss Emma.
I'm just going to ask you real quick, because, what's so important about that? Because I hear you keep saying that, from that 6 months to a year, what's so important about, that click of your mind to say, okay, this is the time I need to reach out, because this may be, because of course grief is different for everyone. The period of grief is different. So is there something that kind of psychological happens to us, during that 6 month to a year period, while you say this is the time to maybe start reaching out?
When it starts to disrupt most of your things in your life, financially, emotionally, socially, environmentally, spiritually, when all those domains in your life are adversely impacted, it's time to get some help. And people get used to grieving, and that negative reinforcement starts to be reinforcing. And so you can't get out of it by yourself. We have Kubler-Ross, DABDA, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and then acceptance. Those 5 stages you need to go through. So when you have a person just stuck in probably bargaining, if I shoulda, coulda, woulda, had I only, if I just had a chance. Well, so you can stay stuck in that 3rd phase. Like I did a group. I blessed a group to go in and talk to them, because the women were talking about their grief. And other than me knowing the backdrop, if you were there, Coach Keisha, you would have thought these losses had just occurred. And some of them was as old as 20 years. And by no means is this a minimization on the mental health side to say, but grieving that long is very unhealthy. And it has adversely affected a lot of stuff.
Right.
And when you come in and you deal with a mental health professional, they're going to help you to kind of see how you stop living. You're breathing, but you stop living.
Yes.
And that's why that 6 months to a year is very important. You have to live and not just breathe, like live. And then if you think about it, when you ask yourself, would that person, especially if they were of age, and it's like we're talking about a mom or aunt or older brother or a sister, would they want you grieving like that? And then we have to be thankful for the time that we have. And no, it's never enough. I promise you, it's never enough. I would have my mother living right now if I had a choice, but I don't have that choice. And so part of what we do in the grief work when we're dealing with people at my agency, we tie in a little bit of the reality therapy. And sometimes it does take someone to be able to say to you in a calm voice, well, how are you holding on to your grief? How is it working for you? And we really get to the nitty-gritty of identifying pros and cons. And oftentimes there is a guilt element that, I don't want to forget him, where you're never going to.
Right.
Unless there's some kind of traumatic brain injury or Parkinson's or Alzheimer's or something like that, you are not. You love them. So no, you're not going to forget them. But oftentimes I find that that's part of the reason we hold on to it, because we feel like we're going to forget them. And you watching. One of the things that I have, this is not one of the things that's as a tool that's been researched or whatever, but in my personal journey, dealing with death and having done this for the last 30 plus years, what I've done in comparison with when you go to a funeral, I find that when you do a memorial service and the casket is not right there before you, in my direct observation of the people in that environment, is far less traumatic. And this was not
interesting.
It was unintentional, Coach Keisha. This was not anything I just started to realize that in comparison to when the body is right there versus a nice picture and people getting up saying the things that they had, I noticed that families were different in their grief. Now, I don't know what happened after the scene, but the grief process that I was directly able to observe is very different. And the feeling in the church is different as well. So that's something that I'm just going to tack on saying, that might be something people might want to entertain, because it certainly afforded me a shift in how I'm put away. There will not be a casket. There will be a memorial whereby my picture is somewhere. I might even leave a video recording. I'm even contemplating that. But we are responsible for, if you have an opportunity to make your transition easier for those that you are leaving behind because they love you, I am certainly going to take that opportunity. So that's just my sidebar, you all, but that's not one of the ones.
Yeah, but it's very interesting. And now when you brought that up, a very important thing that people are dealing with. And like you said, we're not just talking about deaths, but just losses in general. But being in the state that we're in of the pandemic, a lot of that process was removed from us. So, families weren't able to gather for those funerals or memorial services. And if they were able to gather, you had to pick 10 people, who gets to come, then you have, maybe that guilt of, I probably could travel, but I'm too scared to travel, so I don't want to take the chance. And then now you're like, that's a missed opportunity because it's not something that you get to do over again. So then people might be dealing with that kind of guilt on their conscience of, I didn't make the trip, I couldn't make the trip for whatever reason. So COVID has really changed the way people had to even begin to grieve. And so what do? We start now, people were, Zooming and virtually bringing in so that, to give people the opportunity. But how do you think that is kind of playing on us mentally, though, when we're not, because it's kind of that, opportunity to give your last farewell. Mm-hmm. And when your last farewell, you don't have an option whether you can have it or not. How is that? How do you see that with the people you're dealing with playing on our mental health?
It absolutely does. Anytime there's some form of a stressor and a person has an existing diagnosis, it's going to exacerbate it. Mm-hmm. The pandemic in and of itself has just put everything at a level 10 because the problem with it is nobody had experience with it.
Right.
We've had pandemics before, but we were not living. Mm-hmm. So, it's very, very new. And, even the people that are in charge of this is new stuff. This is new traveling territory. And so we're making it up and going as we go. And so with that same thing, I tell people, if you have poor ego strength, when this pandemic started, it got worse. Mm-hmm. If you were a person that was depressed during this pandemic, it got worse if you didn't get treatment. So the key thing I want to really push tonight, you all, is if you're having difficulties, with dealing with anything in your life now, know that pandemic plus what you're dealing with is different than pre-pandemic. Mm-hmm. And those things that you could have kind of mustered along and just plowed through before, I wouldn't risk it if I was you. Just ask for help. Because one of the things I do like is that they are allowing mental health professionals to do like temporary, like you can get temporary license in Texas or New York or like wherever you choose pretty much now, because the need is there and they're making allowances for us to practice across, different states without being totally licensed the way that you have to be. Like I'm licensed in Maryland, Virginia, and DC. They do something temporary in the other
right.
States. So yes, but yeah, just remember, whoever's listening to Coach Keisha and I right now, whatever you had pre-pandemic, if it surfaces now in the midst of pandemic, you're on level 10. Mm-hmm. And you need to make sure you get some help. There is nothing wrong with getting help. And let me dispel that myth of Black people, we just pray. No. So if you want to go spiritual, I can go there too. You're supposed to obey the laws and ordinances of the land thereof. And so that being the case, we are a licensed individual, so it's okay to ask for help. Mm. It's okay for you to use that. If legally I have to be licensed to do this, then it is okay for you to come and get help. And what we do, the other myth, just I ain't crazy. I ain't crazy. I don't need to talk to nobody. Well, you're right. Because mental health professionals, we don't talk to people and that's a stereotype word that I don't even like to use. But people that are criminally insane or insane, they're in an institution. So you're absolutely right. You would not be talking to an outpatient mental health clinician. So that let's as African Americans, I love that over the last 2 decades we are embracing and starting, but we're still behind. We're the race that's still behind other races in terms of embracing help. You know, we just plow through.
Right.
What we
Right.
do. You know, we don't need no help. We're gonna go in the closet and pray about it. Well, and
I think that's very important that you point those out, because it is. You know, we made it so taboo in our community that, you know, folks feel like, I don't need a therapist. Why should I get a therapist? You know, and it is okay to have a therapist, multiple ones, if you need to. It's okay. So yes. And it's great to know that, you know, you have therapists out there that look like you. You know, because some of that insecurity or not that insurance about, has probably derived a lot from, well, I don't want, someone else, in my head that don't look like me. So it's definitely, kudos to you for as long as you have been in this field of study, and knowing that there's other individuals like you. I have a girlfriend who's also a clinical psychiatrist, but it's just good to know that there is more of us doing the work that, people can feel comfortable going to.
Yes. And the last 3, you all, it has to do with, the loneliness and loss, which I've kind of touched about. That's the 4th one. And when you have loneliness and loss, try to make sure that you focus on something that's positive. Like, find out what it is. Like, literally sit down and do a list of things that you like to do. And if you can't formulate a list of things that you would like to do, ergo, time to ask for some help. What we all can be good at is being selfish. You know what I'm saying? Like, we know what we like, but if you're one of those people where that loss is hitting you in a way where you literally can't even come up with a list of things that you like, we need to get some help.
Right.
Okay. And it's okay to get help during the holidays, you all. We work during the holidays. We just gonna work on Christmas. Unless your therapist tell you I'm gonna take off for the whole week. Yeah, if your session is on Monday and Thanksgiving is on Thursday, yeah, you're gonna see therapist on Monday. I know I do.
Right.
And then the 5th one is just the year-end reflection. Like we always do, the first of the year, we plan to do all of this stuff. Do some year-end reflection. And if you've had a lot of loss, one of the things that I'm doing, I'm taking stock of the losses. And I'm going to reflect, and I'm going to use that reflecting time to just, in a sense, probably journal about special times that I had with each one of those people, because it's so easy to focus on the negativity. They're not here. But what about when they were here? What about the most fun time when they was there? And of course, I'm a cognitive behavioral therapist, so I'm always going to pull in journaling. Journaling by far is like one of the magical. I think it's just magic. Because imagine 2 years from now, if you have a little pity party, so to speak, or you start to get down or something, and for the last 2 years, you've had reflection time, and you hear like wonderful stories of the most fun time or the pivotal point that person did something and helped you turn a corner. Write about it in detail, because I promise you, I'm a journaler. So I kind of went back and was looking at some journal and just had a hoot of a time. And yes, there was some sad spots in there, but that span when I journaled for like 4 years straight, there was things I actually forgot, you all. So journaling is powerful. So during this season, that's another thing that you can do. Rather than think about the loss that you have, journal and talk about a fun time. Write about it. Really give it reflection time. Be intentional and mindful about it, which is another thing that you can do. Mindfulness. You have to be intentional. That's another strategy. Being mindful and sitting in meditation about what you have done in life and what you've missed in life. It is okay. Sometimes we have this thing that we just don't want to feel anything. Well, that's a distortion, because we are going to feel.
Right.
Unless you have that disease and that condition, I can't think of what it is, where you're born where you have no feelings, and they can like put their hands in fire. I can't remember the name of what that is, but that is an actual condition that exists like that. Like if you hit their leg with a baseball bat, they don't feel it. And that's
Mm.
dangerous for people like that, unfortunately.
Right.
But that's the last one of the strategies is mindfulness, just being mindful about what it is that you want and you desire in life. And if you find yourself wanting those people back, it is okay to want them. But if you add stopping your fun in your life, that's when it's a problem. I'm always going to want my mom. I'm probably go to my grave with that. I'll always want them back. But can I have them back? The answer is emphatically no. Would they want me grieving ongoing? Emphatically, no. They would want to do exactly what I'm doing now, to share the grief and to share that it is okay to still live.
Mm.
It is okay. And only the individual can give self the permission to be okay. Your therapist is simply your tool to help you along the way. But the work belongs to you, and you have to be willing to step out of the pain and come and get help so that there's somebody in the journey with you to relieve the pain. Step up into the pain to access your gain.
Say that again, Miss Emma. You know you good for that.
Step up into your pain to access your gain. You will need
Mm.
awareness to gain insight to make that change in order to triumph over your trauma. Ask Miss Emma.
Ask Miss Emma. And you can see there below that we have, Ask Miss Emma. We have her website there, her phone number, and her email so that you can contact her, reach out to her and her team. She does an absolute wonderful job. As you can see here, she has the spirit and the passion to help those who are in need of counseling. And she is located right here. We were reminiscing out there that I have to realize that, wait, she's right down the street from me. So she is here, particularly for our audience here in the DMV. But like she said, you still have that expansion where you can work outside of the DMV area.
Well, I can, but I would have to find out what state they're in.
What state they are. So yeah, so reach out, even if you're not here in the DMV and you're watching this, reach out to her, because even if she cannot assist you directly, she has a network that she can refer you out to. We just don't want you to feel like you're alone and you don't have someone to talk to. So they will get you into the hands of someone who can work with you if you are out of their demographic area. Absolutely. Now, tell us a little bit more. I appreciate you sharing all those points with us. They are definitely some very helpful strategies to take into the holiday season and beyond. And, the first one really sticks with me, plan for the present. Like that says a lot, because if you're constantly planning for your present, you won't find yourself being stuck in the past. Not that you are releasing or, like you said, forgetting your loved ones or the loss that you experienced, but is allowing you to live for today as well. And I know, and condolences to you. I know for us, a lot of people lost people in 2020, but for us, the year 2019 was a year. And it was, I found myself going down 210 months later, just all of a sudden, just busting out crying and screaming because I have finally gave myself a moment to really realize what all had just happened over the summer. Mm-hmm. So it's just, you never know when it's going to happen. But, experiencing the first uncle pass away in the early part of June, I think it was June 3rd. we all gathered. This is when we could still gather. I saw my cousin who was battling cancer at the time. She was there at the service and, excited to see her. And then 3 weeks later, she wasn't there anymore. And it was something because my uncle and my aunt live right next door to each other. So 3 weeks apart, we come and the funeral home had to put that light, downside. They put the light in front of your house. So it's like 1 week the light was in front of my uncle's house, and then they came back 3 weeks later and had to move it next door to my aunt's house. And so it was a lot to take in to, do it. And I realized that from there on, I traveled, I trip. And so that first week where there was no traveling and there was nothing to do, it just all came rushing down on me while I was driving. So you never know, when it's going to happen or how you're going to deal with it. But, know that there is help out there, and if you just, you can look up grief counseling if you missed her phone number, but her website is www.hmocs.org. And you can call Dr. Emma at 240-429-5390, and the email the same, info@hmocs.org. So I always like to say it too, because once we advance and transition to iPod, they're just going to hear audio wise. So for those that hear audio, you have that information, and you can always go to the Joy Is Just Over Yonder page as well. And the videos will be up there for your replay, and it will also be on our YouTube channel, our I Am LMOSE YouTube channel. So Dr. Emma, we thank you so much for sharing those strategies, but I always like to give the guests an opportunity because you provide those services. You are a co-author, you are a multi-author. Again, we are co-authors in the I Am Victor book, but you also went on to be an author in the You Are Enough book, correct?
Yes, with Dr. Cheryl and Les Brown.
Yes. So tell us also a little bit about that and what is upcoming from you.
Well, upcoming, I'm just October 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, I entered into a project with Terea Vision Avant, and I have now taken the call and finally wrote a book about trauma. And the title, the title of the book, How to Unmask and Resolve Trauma.
Excellent.
Thank you. So this time I won't be co-authoring. I authored my own book.
Yes, I love it.
Yes, I made a call to action and invested in myself again because Dr. Cheryl and the GOAT, Les Brown, they have another project, Possibilities Unlimited, and I have joined that, so I will be a co-author in that book as well. So now I have 2 books, one of which is international level, and that's the You Are Enough with Les Brown, and the first one where we co-authored together in Coach Keisha, I Am a Victor. And I love the way that it unfolds because if you think in terms of, I have this Trinity thing that seems to follow me around, as you can see, triangles, and Father, Son, Holy Ghost, where all my help comes from. It followed the same way in this writing pursuit that I'm in. And never did I see myself as a writer, ever. And now
here you are.
I am a victor. You are enough. And now unlimited possibilities unlimited. Like, do you see how that just goes together?
Absolutely.
And I love it.
I love it as well. Congratulations. Congratulations. Now you're also doing, I think I even received an email, but you're also doing some like mental health coaching. Yes. Let's talk about that project.
Yes. One of the ways that I'm giving back to my profession is that we have a lot of mental health professionals who they could be in business, but they're not because no one probably gives back in the way that I'm doing. And I'm taking the lead. I'm taking the example from people like Dr. Sherrill, you, Coach Keisha, Taraya Vision Avant, and how much you all give of yourselves. And so I said, I got to give back to my profession because we're needed now. This is the pandemic. So I'm literally, I've monetized my clinical skills. And so I'm teaching other mental health professionals how to start a business. I have a module 1, 2, and 3, which is an evidence-based psychotherapy class that I am going to be teaching. I'm actually doing the master class this Saturday coming. And I have a bundle package where I have effective clinical note writing, effective diagnosing and treatment planning, implementing Erickson's psychosocial stages of development in clinical practice. I have over 65 CEUs that I offer because my agency is a certified agency to do CEU trainings. And so I've embarked upon teaching as well. And never did I see myself as a teacher. So God just will do things in your life that you didn't even see it coming.
Right. And I think it's all phenomenal. I can absolutely see you as a teacher. I can absolutely see it.
Everybody keeps saying that, Coach Keisha. Yes. I'm like, why y'all say stuff I didn't see?
I mean, when you have asked Miss Emma, that speaks, I'm about to teach you something. So it just all goes together. That is so wonderful. We are so proud to have you, not just me personally, but just as a community, as this whole DMV area, that we're proud that you are one of our own and that you are helping and serving internationally in the mental health community. Continue to do the work that you're doing because it is much needed, much appreciated. And again, if you need to reach out, go to her website, www.hmocs.org. for resources on mental health, to find a provider, and to just see what's coming if you are a mental health professional yourself, and how you can get involved and use her educational services to continue your profession. So we will be seeing each other next week as SpeakerCon kicks off. We're so excited that I'll see you on Wednesday night. And are you one of the guest speakers throughout the SpeakerCon? Okay, so we will enjoy each other next Wednesday evening. And you are always welcome on Let's Rap About a Wednesday. And we look forward to having you, hopefully, when we kick off the virtual summit. Like we did last January, we're going to bring that back. This January, I think it was very helpful doing it at the beginning of the year. So we will have that coming up. And I'm telling you, I wish I did not realize you were right here, because we are doing our shorter November version. Let me put this up here so that you all can join us if you can. But November 19th and 20th, we are kicking off Wrapped and Wellness 3.0, The Overflow. That's going to be here at the Harborside Hotel right here in Oxon Hill, Maryland. We'll kick off Friday night. And we really wanted to offer a couple of days for people like you. And for people who not only are looking for wellness, but a time for those who've been pouring out all year to kind of take a break and soak it in. So we're actually doing something a little different. As you see, it's The Overflow. We met at the Well in January, and there has been so many abundant blessings for those who attended and those who gave during that time. So we are just taking some time to absorb the overflow. We'll have a kind of a paint and sip Friday evening so that people can tap into their creative flow, some poetry, and then some pleasure flow from Dr. Lavon Shaw. And then we'll kick it into the movement on Saturday with some yoga flow, mindfulness, as well as some other individuals that are going to be sharing with us. And we're really encouraging you to come and join this and enjoy it with your significant others. Sometimes we feel like, this one is not just for women, it's for men and women to come together, to enjoy, to share, so that we can get well together. So that's November 19th through the 20th. Wrapped in Wellness 3.0. And then in January, we'll have our 3-day virtual summit, which will be 4.0. The overflow continues. So we want to thank you again, Dr. Emma, for coming and sharing with us tonight. Bless you. We will see you on the flip side of Let's Rap About It Wednesday. Remember, we come every 2 weeks to you. So we'll go through November, taking a break during that Thanksgiving week. And then we'll do a special show for you in December. And then we'll break for season 4. And then we'll kick off season 5 in the new year. So come back and we'll finish this out strong. Again, we thank you all for joining us tonight on Let's Rap About It Wednesdays with your host, Coach Lakeisha, and our special guest, Ask Miss Emma, Dr. Emma Norfleet-Hayes. Peace and blessings.
Bye. Love you, Keisha.